We're going to talk about the stamp tool now, which is a tool to actually duplicate parts of an image into another part of the same image or a different image altogether. For example, let's say that I want to create a third eye for the duck. Here I'm going to use my clone stamp tool, which is my first option here. The clone stamp tool will take one part, whichever part you select, and will put it somewhere else. But first you have to specify the source. To specify the source, you have to press Alt on the keyboard and click somewhere. You see when you press Alt, the cursor changes, telling you that you need to specify the source. So let's say, because I want to create another eye, I'll click here. Alright, so now whenever I paint, I will actually be painting from that area onto there. So now I have the third eye. It's not like the brush tool where you actually take one pixel at a time. So with the brush tool, I just paint with one color, one pixel color. So if I press Alt and click on the brush and go like this, I'll just sample one color and paint with that color. Here it's different. Here I'm taking the source and I'm painting by copying that source into another area like this, which is very important. Now let's say that I wanted to move the eye. I can't because it's on the same layer, so I'll undo. And here I'm gonna create a new layer so that the new eye will be on the new layer and not on the same layer. So if I press Alt, click and try to paint, nothing will happen. Why? Because as far as Photoshop is concerned, I'm painting from an empty layer into an empty layer, so I have nothing to copy from because the layer 1 is empty. If on the other hand I check use all layers, I'd be copying from any layer but pasting into this selected layer, which is the one I'm working on. So if I pressed Alt now and clicked and then painted like this, I would get the same thing, but if I go to my move tool, I can move this eye around. Right? So this is very useful. If I hide this, I would see the eye pasted on that or painted on that layer. So this is what use all layers is. Next we have an aligned checkbox. Let's see what this does. Let's open another image. Let's say the eagle. Okay, I want to copy from the eagle into that image on a new layer. So let's create another layer because this is my source and that's going to be my target. So I go to the source, I'll press Alt and click somewhere to define the source. So I'm going to specify the eye of the eagle as my source. So I went here, pressed Alt and clicked. Now when I go there on the new layer, if I paint, I will get the eye, which is what I expect. If I paint again, I will get the eye again, and so forth. If I expanded the brush size, so every time I paint, I get the eye of the eagle. Okay, now this is okay, but let's say that I don't want to start over every time. Let's say that I wanted to continue with the eagle. So Control Alt Z to undo. If I pressed and released, I have the eye. Let's say I want to continue, but I can't because it's going to start over every time I press and click. If, on the other hand, I check aligned, I click and click. So every time I'm clicking, I'm continuing the image. I'm not starting over. Right? So that's what aligned is. Aligned means that you're going to continue with your cloning. This is called cloning, but not start over. If you uncheck aligned, every time you click, you're going to start over. So now you have two eyes and maybe a third eye because I didn't check aligned. If I did check aligned, every time I click, I continue over what I had in my image. So that's what aligned is. It's useful in case you don't want to repeat things. If you want to repeat things, you don't check aligned. Now here you have the airbrush. If you don't press the airbrush and you press and keep pressing, I'm keeping pressing here, nothing happens. You just have the painting. But if you press the paintbrush and you keep pressing, it will expand like we saw before. Right? So if you press once, it will go like this. If you press and keep pressing, it will expand all the time. That's what the airbrush does. You also have the flow. The flow is almost like the opacity, but it works on the concentration of colors. I'll talk about this in a bit more detail later. The opacity will let you make the cloning more transparent, right? If you paint again, it will become more opaque and so forth. So this is used for creating special effects like these, for example. Although it's not very nice now, but you can use it for this effect.